You are listening to The Postmaster, written by Ravindranath Tagore and narrated by me, Parikshit Bajpayee. For his first job, the postmaster came to the village of Ulapur. It was a very humble village. There was an indigo factory nearby, and the British manager had, with much effort, established a new post office. The postmaster was a Calcutta boy. He was a fish out of water in a village like this. His office was in a dark thatched hut. There was a pond next to it, scummed over with weeds and jungle all around. The indigo agents and employees had hardly any spare time and were not suitable company for an educated man. Or rather, his Calcutta background made him a bad mixture. In an unfamiliar place, he was either arrogant or ill at ease. So there was not much contact between him and the residents in the area. But he had very little work to do. Sometimes he tried to write poems. The bliss of spending one's life watching the leaves trembling in the trees or the clouds in the sky. That was what the poems expressed. God knew, however, that if a genie out of an Arab tale had come and cut down all the leafy trees overnight, made a road, and blocked out the sky with rows of tall buildings, this half dead, well bred young man would have come alive again. The postmaster's salary was meager. He had to cook for himself, and an orphaned village girl did housework for him in return for a little food. Her name was Ratan, and she was about 12 or 13. It seemed unlikely that she would get married. In the evenings, when smoke curled up from the village cowsheds, crickets grated in the bushes, a band of intoxicated bowl singers in a far village sang recklessly to drums and cymbals, and even a poet, if seated alone on a dark veranda, might have shuddered a little at the trembling leaves. The postmaster would go inside, light a dim lamp in the corner of the room, and call for Ratan. Ratan would be waiting at the door for this, but she did not come at the first call. She would call back, "What is it, Dada Bau? What do you want?" "What are you doing?" the postmaster would ask. "I must go and light the kitchen fire." "You can do your kitchen work later. Get my hookah ready for me." Soon Ratan came in, puffing out her cheeks as she blew on the bowl of the hookah. Taking it from her, the postmaster would say abruptly, "So Ratan, do you remember your mother?" She had lots to tell him. Some things she remembered, others she did not. Her father loved her more than her mother did. She remembered him a little. He used to come home in the evening after working hard all day, and one or two evenings were clearly etched in her memory. As she talked, Ratan edged nearer to the postmaster and would end up sitting on the ground at his feet. She remembered her little brother. One distinct day during the rainy season, they had stood on the edge of a small pond and played at catching fish with sticks broken off trees. This memory was far more vividly fixed in her mind than many more important things. Sometimes these conversations went on late into the night, and the postmaster had felt too sleepy to cook. There would be some vegetable curry left over from midday, and Ratan would quickly light up the fire and cook some chapati. They made their supper out of that. Occasionally, sitting on a low wooden office stool in a corner of his large hut, the postmaster would speak of his family, his younger brother, mother, and elder sister, all those for whom his heart ached. alone and exiled as he was. He told this illiterate young girl things which were often in his mind, but which he would never have dreamt of divulging to the Indigo employees, as it seemed quite natural to do so. Eventually, Ratan referred to the postmaster's family, his mother, sister, and brother, as if they were her own. She even formed affectionate imaginary pictures of them in her mind. It was a fine afternoon in the rainy season. The breeze was softly warm. There was a smell of sunshine on wet grass and leaves. Earth's breath, hot with fatigue, seemed to brush against the skin. A persistent bird cried out monotonously somewhere, making repeated and pathetic appeal at nature's midday darbar. The postmaster had hardly any work. Truly, the only thing to look at were the smooth, skinny, rain washed leaves, the layers of sun whitened, broken up clouds left over from the rain. He watched and felt how it would be to have a close companion here, a human object for the heart's most intimate affections. Gradually, it seems that the bird was saying precisely this again and again, that in the afternoon shade and solitude, the same meaning was in the rustle of the leaves. Few would believe or imagine that a poorly paid sub postmaster in a small village could have such feelings in the deep, idle stillness of the afternoon. Sighing heavily, the postmaster called for Ratan. Ratan, at that moment, stretched out under a guava tree eating unripe guavas. At the sound of her master's call, she got up at once and ran to him. Yes, Dadabau, you called? She said breathlessly. I am going to teach you to read a little bit each day, said the postmaster. He taught her daily at midday from then on, starting with the vowels but quickly progressing to the consonants and conjuncts. During the month of Sraban, the rain was continuous. Ditches, pits, and channels filled to overflowing with water. During the month of Saban, the rain was continuous. Ditches, pits, and channels filled to overflowing with water. The croaking of frogs and the patter of rain went on day and night. It was virtually impossible to get out on foot. One had to go to market by boat. One day it rained torrentially from dawn. The postmaster's pupil waited for a long time at the door, but when the usual call failed to come, she quietly entered the room with her bundle of books. She saw the postmaster laying on his bed. Thinking that he was resting, she began to tiptoe out again. Suddenly, she heard him call her. She turned round and quickly went up to him, saying, Won't you sleep, Dadabau? I don't feel well, said the postmaster painfully. Have a look. Feel my forehead. He felt in need of comfort, ill and miserable as he was. In this isolated place, the rain was pouring down. He remembered the touch of his forehead of soft hands, conch shell bangles. He wished his mother or sister were sitting here next to him, soothing his illness and loneliness with feminine tenderness. And his longing did not stay unfulfilled. The young girl Ratan was a young girl no more. From that moment on, she took on the role of a mother, calling the doctor, giving him pills at the right time, staying awake at his bedside all night long, cooking him meals, and saying 100 times, "Are you feeling a bit better, Dadabao?" Many days later, the postmaster got up from his bed, thin and weak. He had decided that enough was enough. Somehow he would have to leave. He wrote at once to his head office in Calcutta applying for a transfer because of the unhealthiness of the place. Released from nursing the postmaster, Ratan once again took up her normal place outside his door, but his call did not come for her as before. Sometimes she would peep in and see the postmaster sitting distractedly on his stool or laying on his bed. While she sat expecting his summons, he was anxiously waiting a reply to his application. She sat outside the door going over her old lessons numerous times. She was terrified that if he suddenly summoned her again one day, the conjunct consonant would all be muddled up in her mind. Eventually, after several weeks, his call came again one evening. With eager heart, Ratan rushed into the room. "Did you call Dadabau?" she asked. "I am leaving tomorrow, Ratan," said the postmaster. "Where are you going, Dadabau?" "I'm going home." "When are you coming back?" "I shan't come back again." Ratan did not question him further. The postmaster himself told her that he had applied for a transfer, but his application has been rejected. So he was resigning from his post and returning home. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The lamp flickered weakly through a hole in the crumbling thatched roof, rainwater steadily dripping on an earthenware dish. Ratan then went slowly out to the kitchen to make some chapati. She made them with none of her usual energy. No doubt, her thoughts distracted her. When the postmaster had had his meal, she suddenly asked, "Dada Babu, will you take me home with you?" "How could I do that?" said the postmaster, laughing. He saw no need to explain to the girl why the idea was impossible. All night long, whether dreaming or awake, Ratan felt the postmaster's laugh ringing in her ears. How could I do that? When he rose at dawn, the postmaster saw that his bath water had been put out ready for him. Ratan had not been able to bring herself to ask him what time he would be leaving. She had carried the bath water up from the river late at night, in case he needed it early in the morning. As soon as he finished his bath, the postmaster called her. She entered the room softly and looked at him once without speaking, ready for her orders. "Ratan," he said, "I'll tell the man who replaces me that he should look after you as I have. You must not worry just because I am going." No doubt, this remark was inspired by kind and generous feelings, but who can fathom the feelings of a woman? Ratan had meekly suffered many scoldings from her master, but these kindly words were more than she could bear. The passion in her heart exploded and she cried, "No, no, you must not say anything to anyone. I don't want to stay here." The postmaster was taken aback. He had never seen Ratan behave like this before. A new postmaster came. After handing over his charge to him, the resigning postmaster got ready to leave. Before going, he called Ratan and said, "Ratan, I have never been able to pay you anything. Today, before I go, I want to give you something to last you for a few days." Except for the little that he needed for the journey, he took out all the salary that was in his pocket. But Ratan sank to the ground and clung to his feet, saying, "I beg you, Dadabao, I beg you, don't give me any money, please. No one need to bother about me." Then she fled, running. The departing postmaster shied, picked up his carpet bag, put his umbrella over his shoulder, and with the coolie carrying his blue and white striped tin tank on his head, slowly made his way towards the boat. When he was on the boat and it had set sail, when the swollen floodwaters of the river started to heave like the earth's brimming tears, the postmaster felt a huge anguish. The image of a simply young village girl's grief-stricken face seemed to speak a great, inarticulate, universal sorrow. He felt a sharp desire to go back. Should he not fetch that orphaned girl whom the world had abandoned? But the wind was filling the sails by then. The swollen river was flowing fiercely. The village had been left behind. The riverside burning ground was in view. Detached by the current of the river, he reflected philosophically that in life there are many separations, many deaths. What point was there in going back? Who belonged to whom in this world? But Ratan, she had no such philosophy to console her. All she could do was wander near the post office, weeping copiously. Maybe a faint hope lingered in her mind that Dadabao might return, and this was enough to tie her to the spot, prevented her from going far. Oh, poor unthinking human heart. Error will not go away. Logic and reason are slow to penetrate. We cling with both arms to false hope, refusing to believe the weightest proofs against it, embracing it with all our strength. In the end, it escapes, ripping our veins and draining our heart's blood. Until regaining consciousness, we rush to fall into snares of delusions all over again.